No, I do feel like 26 in terms of my energy and my spirit. And the fact that I have had 80 revolutions around the sun, and then am told in 2021 by a major aerospace engineer that we know that the tall whites have 500 to 800 year lives. And suddenly that makes sense to me because I would love to have a 500 or 800 year life. And one of the questions about us Homo sapiens sapiens is why were we made with such short lives? And when I asked that question to an extraordinary individual that I met in this conference, who has a lot of connections to the Pentagon, and I asked him, why do we have such short lives? He said, it's too deep a subject to go in here. And I think it is a key. I think it is a key to why there was the manipulation of DNA in already evolving primates in the beginning. And today, this will be a humble journey through just a few of the slices of why I think of it as a hall of mirrors with a quicksand floor. I personally, in a life of 80 revolutions around the sun, don't remember a time as turbulent as this one unless I go back to the 1960s where I got my back beaten by a billy club fighting against the Vietnam War. And given the turbulent and revolutionary times that we are now living in, there is also growing and persistent buzz that finally the Pentagon could be getting ready to crack open the big secret that we're not alone in this universe. And there might even be a congressional hearing for the public this year of 2022, according to sources that I have, to receive testimony under oath for the very first time from military and aerospace professionals who have firsthand information about other intelligence based on Earth, our moon, Mars, inside Jupiter's huge Ganymede moon, and beyond to other solar systems in the Milky Way galaxy. This is not science fiction. It's not a Star Trek series. This is for real, you guys. This is for real. And sadly, there have been strict policies of lies and denial since World War II about UFOs and ETs interacting with Earth, while power brokers have had vested interests in keeping the real facts from the public world. So trying to crack open the truth is like running through a hall of mirrors with a quicksand floor. And I wouldn't be standing here now in February of 2022 if I had not tried hard for the past 43 years to answer honestly who, what, and why are wild and domestic animals all over this planet killed and mutilated without blood or tracks. When I produced my television documentary, A Strange Harvest, that was first broadcast by the CBS station in Denver, Colorado on May 25, 1980, law enforcement and ranchers had been the first to tell me, quote, the perpetrators of animal mutilations are creatures from outer space, close quote. But which creatures? From where and why? Here is a November 2016 comparison, only 6 years ago, of the top photo in which an entire udder was excised from a 1,200-pound cow in John Day, Oregon, that was pregnant with a 1-month-old calf. The bottom photo was taken 33 years ago on March 10th, 1989 in Hope, Arkansas, when the entire udder was bloodlessly cut from a pregnant cow, while her unborn calf was found dead in the embryo sac inside of the cow. This photo was taken after the farmer dragged the dead calf away. And then, only 6 years ago, on March 14, 2016, this large, bloodless, rectangular excision of a pregnant cow's udder, only hide deep, was found on a dead, pregnant Angus cow on the Windmill Angus Ranch in Hagler, Nebraska. That night, the owner saw a blast of white light fill their bedroom, and at the same time, all of their automatic outdoor lights shut off. Even controlled remote viewers working in the late 1980s at Fort Meade, Maryland for the Defense Intelligence Agency on the top secret Stargate controlled remote viewing project reported that the cosmos is teeming with consciousness. Some of it is friendly, some neutral, and some unfriendly to humans on Earth. Since the current model of standing up primates that we call Homo sapiens sapien emerged alongside Neanderthals some 45,000 years ago, why would anything in this universe be hostile to humans who are like babies in the universe, or to any Earth life? Was there ET hostility in the animal mutilations? Or were all those strange bloodless excisions of tissue actually calculated harvests of genetic material because the perpetrators are using some genetic ingredients from Earth life specifically to make clones and hybrids that can survive and work on this particular planet Earth? In 1979 to 1980, I remember my confusion and fear about whatever it was in the sky that could use a beam to lift a 1,700-pound cow from pastures and then bloodlessly excise an ear, eye, tongue, jaw flesh, genitals, and rectum. This anonymous postcard, dated June 19, 1989, reached the post office box that I had in Littleton, Colorado, after my first book, An Alien Harvest, was released in June of 1989 about my animal mutilation investigations. And a decade of US government efforts to intimidate and stop me from investigating. I have never, ever gone into the public of all the things the government did, trying to get me to stop. And it was a real wake-up call, because I think it was finally my transition from realizing that being an American does not mean that you are protected by your government. Here is what this postcard said. Dear Linda, congratulations on an alien harvest, an outstanding truth, an exemplary, inestimable document. You have one half of the equation. The other one half is truly the nightmare beyond telling. A few know, but still remain silent, close quote. Today, as this conscious life intensive unfolds, I will share with you recent 2021 to 2022 whistleblower information that perhaps gives insights to this postcard, and especially the other one half that is a nightmare beyond telling. This photo on the front of the postcard is a scene from The Day the Earth Stood Still, released in 1951 by 20th Century Fox Film Corporation. In the UFO's doorway, there is an extraterrestrial humanoid named Klaatu, with his hand raised as if in a friendly greeting. In front is the powerful robot, Gort. They have come to Earth to deliver a warning that humans will not be allowed to spread their nuclear violence into space. And that was only 6 years after the United States dropped the atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Japan, that ended World War II. 3 decades after the atomic bombs, my Emmy Award-winning TV documentary, A Strange Harvest, was first broadcast about the bloodless, trackless animal mutilations throughout Colorado, the United States, Canada, and around the world since at least the early 1960s. I produced the documentary when I was Director of Special Projects for KMGH-TV Channel 7, then CBS in Denver. I had worked 18-hour days for 9 straight months trying to understand who or what was killing and mutilating so many different animals, both domestic and wild, and why. That included deer, elk, reindeer, marmots, foxes, rabbits, as well as cattle and horses. So the anonymous 1989 postcard after my book, An Alien Harvest, was released, implied there was a shocking and disturbing revelation about the agenda behind the UFO and ET phenomena. A Strange Harvest was first broadcast on the evening of May 25, 1980, to the largest audience in the Denver station's history from then to now for a nonfiction documentary. That meant to me that I was only scratching the surface of a huge iceberg of people who knew the animal mutilations were a real and serious phenomenon. And during my documentary production, retired Logan County Sheriff Tex Graves and several deputy sheriffs who frequently saw this big mama UFO emitting what locals called baby UFOs, they all told me, quote, "Linda, the perpetrators are creatures from outer space," close quote, based on their seeing these UFOs in the night over the pastures where they were investigating mutilated animals. I also heard firsthand descriptions from ranchers who had seen round glowing aerial objects emit beams of light down into pastures. Some had even seen a cow rise in a beam of light, later to be found dead and mutilated. Others had seen an animal lowered right before them in a beam of light to the ground, and then would find the animal dead and mutilated. None of those ranchers would go on the record in front of my TV camera for fear of sarcastic ridicule by other humans. A typical animal mutilation like this one from 1976 in Colorado had its lower jaw and nose flesh bloodlessly excised to clean white bone, along with the removal of its tongue deep within the cow's throat. Ask any hunter, how would you do this? How would you reduce jaw flesh and the cartilage to clean bone? And the answer is not only from people who hunt, but from veterinarians who I've asked. There is only one way. You would have to boil the jawbone for a long time to get it as clean as these animals are found, still warm to touch. Often, there has been what ranchers call a cookie cutter circular removal of flesh around the eye, along with the eyeball, like this Polaroid photo shows. Other bloodless excisions include the removal of genitals, like this bull calf's penis excision in Manila, Utah, discovered on October 22nd, 1982. There was not a single drop of blood anywhere on that white-haired stomach. Just the month before, on September 9th, 1982, near Colorado Springs, Colorado, exactly one half of this pregnant cow's udder was cut away on a bright sunny afternoon only 1/4 of a mile from where the ranch owners were painting their house outdoors all day. So close, and yet neither rancher heard any disturbance, and there was not a trace of blood, milk, or other fluid on that dead pregnant cow's white stomach hair. Rectal tissue is often removed in a large, clean hole, and vaginal tissues in females are also removed along with the rectal tissue, as shown in this 1975 Colorado Polaroid image. And then there is the pathology evidence that the bloodless excisions of an ear, eye, skin around the eye, jaw flesh, tongue, genital, and rectal tissue are cut out with heat by an unknown instrument, as shown in this Oregon State University pathologist report of a mutilated steer in 1990 that states, quote, "It does appear consistent with a heat-induced injury," close quote. That Oregon 1990 pathology report was about the bottom serrated edge in this image. The upper photo was a similar serrated edge from a mutilated cow 15 years earlier in Great Falls, Montana in 1975. And I made a note to myself to just tell you something. Sheriff Tex Graves, on that meeting that I had with him in Sterling, Colorado, he told me that on his very first animal mutilation investigation in 1970, he asked a veterinarian to go with him. And it was a large, approximately 1,700 pound, it was a cow. And the veterinarian went and started the necropsy. I've been with veterinarians and I've experienced what it is like to do necropsies. It's like men used to take apart car engines before the computer age. It's the same thing, that you're out in a field and the veterinarian begins and they have a very precise, and they start opening up parts of the animal and they lay everything in very neat, orderly, and then they make all of their observations in a notebook about what they are doing in the field. And the sheriff said, the vet looked up at me and said, "Tex, I want you to look at this." And the sheriff told me the vet had on gloves, and it was late afternoon light, and all he could see was glistening on his index finger. And Tex said, "What are you showing me?" He said, "Lean down here." He said, "This is the pericardium. This pericardium should be surrounding a large adult cow heart." Sheriff, look. And the chest had no heart. And the vet said to Tex Graves, "Look down here. I found this pericardium collapsed inside of this chest. There is no clotted blood. There is no clotted blood in the veins or the arteries. The only thing left is this pericardium. And Sheriff, I cannot find one single excision in this pericardium. How do you get a 9 by 11 by 12 inch, this is about the size of cow hearts, how do you get it out of the pericardium, out of the rib cage of an animal in their chest, with no surgery anywhere on the body and no excision in the pericardium?" Later, I would have a discussion with a man who was at the time leading in laser surgery research in Denver. And he said, perhaps, Linda, 50 years from now, which would have been 50 years from 1979, he said, "I imagine that we will have molecular specific surgery. And that means it will be done with frequencies that will go through skin, cartilage, bone, and you want to take out a gallbladder, it will interact only with the gallbladder. There will be no cuts, no surgeries, no bleeding. It will be molecular extraction, as was happening in animal mutilations back in the early 1960s. In my documentary, A Strange Harvest, I featured a human abduction case in which a mother, Judy Doherty, and her teenage daughter, Cindy, have both been taken aboard a craft in May of 1973 outside Houston, Texas. Inside the craft, a pasty-skinned being with large snake eyes, because they had vertical pupils, excised tissue from a calf that Judy Doherty was her whole name, had been seen rising in a pale yellow beam from a pasture alongside the road that she and her family were traveling from a Houston, Texas bingo game that night to their home. Dr. Leo Sprinkle, then head of counseling and testing at the University of Wyoming in Cheyenne, who I honor so much. He was the kindest human being I have ever met. I worked with him for a very long time on A Strange Harvest, and after. He passed about 3 weeks ago. I hope you are happy, Leo, wherever you are. Leo joined my cameraman and me to film a hypnosis session in March of 1980 for my documentary, A Strange Harvest. And I'm going to play for you now an excerpt from Judy Doherty.
For some reason, they projected that it was necessary this be done, that, that it was for our betterment, for the betterment mankind that this was done. That they were more or less watching out for us.
So you felt better when you had that
Yes.
impression of not only precision but also a benevolent or a kind attitude
Right.
for people?
I can't say that they were kind.
But concerned?
I can't even say that they were concerned. They were just like doing a job that evidently it affects them too. And it has to do with somehow nuclear waste or testing, or they've been here for quite some time. They test the soil as well as our water, as well as our animal life, our vegetation. When I question why they aren't saying more, and why they can't stop it if they're so knowledgeable and they get angry. I don't know. I don't understand that.
You don't know why they get angry?
I don't know why they don't. I don't know why they get angry, and I don't know why if they can't stop it if they're so knowledgeable.
And now I want to share with you insights that I first received from a trusted science whistleblower in July of 2021 about the reason for animal mutilations on Earth by extraterrestrials. And the first thing I want to do now, and I don't know in the condition of this room if you're going to be able to see clearly. I was hoping we had a larger screen. See, I don't think that's going to translate very well, is it? I'm building a solar system from Earth out to other solar systems map based on information that I'm getting from two people who are extremely reliable. I wish that I could name them, where they work, what they do, and you would be stunned. And that my map is based on their reliable information. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just at least play. This goes into a Zoom, and then I don't know. I'll go ahead and proceed as if we could see this. Here is a star map of Earth's interstellar neighborhood. I'm trying to organize what I've learned so far from a variety of sources about where actual extraterrestrial civilizations are alleged to be around us and how far away. Look how crowded our interstellar neighborhood is. Here we are on Earth, the red solar system, and the yellow underlined Earth and Sun. Within 20 light years of Earth, at least 10 intelligent humanoid species have been described to me, including the tall whites on 82G Eridani, and the Nordic blondes on Procyon A and B, and Sirius A and B. Now I'm going to try, I don't know whether it's really not very, this is not a very good way to do this presentation, but it's what we've got. Okay, I'm going to try, let's see, if for those of you, I'll start with, let's see, I think I'll try it like this. Epsilon Indi, you've probably never heard of it before. This is the home of the progenitor tall grays. They are 7, 8 feet tall. They are the thin ones. Every once in a while, an abductee draws and sketches and said, I was 5 feet and they were about 3 feet taller. They are 8 feet. They are very thin. They are not robust. They are the makers of the artificial intelligence that fills all the other solar system research. So here's Epsilon Indi. Around our solar system, here, Earth, our sun. Around our solar system is a cluster of inhabited planets that starts 82 G Eridani. These are the tall whites. I have two solid, very experienced sources who have each one sought me out saying, we have followed your work for a long time and we now want you to be able to talk about the other solar systems, telling me that since 1972, only 3 years after the Apollo program, there was a Space Force with a Space Force uniform that worked in collaboration with the tall whites and tall Nordics. Procyon A and B, when you get home and the computer, start looking up some of these, Procyon A and B. Nordics from Rigel or Rigel, depending upon which source of pronunciation you're reading. Here's Rigel. Here's my note, Reptilian now. Originally Nordics, before the Procyon Exodus. What these sources have told me is that we really are in a Star Trek, Star Wars kind of existence. People would be shocked. And there's been a constant battle between tall Nordics and reptilians going on for eons, not just on Earth. And that the Procyon A and B position in the solar system of the Nordics here, they were chased out of Rigel by reptilians and they hate each other and they're always trying to annihilate each other. The Tau Ceti, you may never have heard this, Carl Sagan and Drake at Cornell University actually had a photograph of a red-haired alleged Tau Cetian back in what would have been around the early 80s, and that it was red-haired. And today, my current sources say Tau Ceti has humanoids with reddish hair. I had already seen and heard about the Carl Sagan Drake long ago, and so that seems to be consistent. Sirius A and B. Throughout history, you've probably heard a lot about Sirius, and we know the whole Orion Sirius layout of Cheops and the Sphinx. Well, Sirius A and B, under this current identification from the aerospace people, that they are Nordics and water-living humanoids. And what is amazing is before I was given this specific piece of information, a year and a half ago, a full 18 months ago, a man contacted me and said, I don't think I want my name ever to be used, but he said, I want you to know I have been to a planet that orbits Sirius, and it was Sirius A, and he said, I was in a city of some sort with tremendous architecture, but the beings were water beings, and everything was built for them to go into the water and out of the water. And he said they were humanoid. They didn't look like dolphins or whales, but that they were humanoids so adapted to going in and out of the water that the whole city was made for that. Then, working up to here, Epsilon Eridani. It's only 10 light years from Earth and the Sun. This is what the postcard is alluding to. Hostile insects. Hostile insects that you're going to hear more about that are so advanced, they may be the most advanced of all the intelligences, unfortunately. And that for whatever are the reasons, they have no compassion, no morality, that they are able to manipulate time, they are able to move in space tunnel, point to point. And these hostile insects of Epsilon Eridani, close in this crowded area of this little arm in the Milky Way galaxy, is currently a huge problem. And up here, I want to raise something before I start now sharing with you information presented to President Reagan about the insect threat. Up here, Aldebaran, or Aldebaran, whichever pronunciation you prefer. Blonde, blue-eyed, with Hitler, World War II. And the information that I'm now going to go into you with this as a background. These, at Epsilon Eridani, can be on Earth and look like the blonde, blue-eyed species that Hitler was obsessed with creating a population that would control Earth as blonde, blue-eyed. And they wanted what? They wanted the extermination of the Hebrews. And remember, I started out by talking about the fight, the constant competition between the tall blondes that had to leave Procyon A and B because the reptilians came in. I am humble in presenting this information to you because I cannot prove it. But I think finally it is important to consider the possibility that what happened in World War II, what was behind Hitler's obsession, was to support this. The insects want Earth. They've wanted Earth for a long time. They do not want Earth with humanity on it. They are 1,000 years in advance of us. The tall Nordics and the tall whites may or may not be able to defeat. Who is in our universe who could literally protect this planet is what is in play. And I'm not trying to be, I'm not trying to cause fear. It's that I have been dealing with these difficult subjects for 43 years. And the more I have learned, and the less I have seen the world public knowing anything, it is as if the insects and those that want Earth, and they want humans to remain dumb and blind because it makes everything they're doing so much easier. The more knowledge we have, the more awareness, just my very talking to you tonight, may open up something in your brains that will make you less vulnerable to what appears to be the easiest con job in the cosmos, keeping humans dumb and blind while their planet is taken. That is my honest perspective. So much artificial intelligence involved with ET interactions with Earth. And that is why humans in abductions usually see the small gray AI workers with big black eyes. These can be made by any of the species. They are a form of general artificial intelligence that is being used by many. Some experiencers describe the black eyes as high-tech lenses that see in infrared and other frequencies, Experiencers also sense that the small grays take orders from the taller beings who made them, and that the tall beings are much older and are the original genetic manipulators in charge of life experiments on many planets, including Earth. Genetic manipulation has included already evolving primates on Earth to create Cro-Magnon, Homo sapiens sapien, we humans. And the far right in this illustration shows evolution to a human cyborg. Other sophisticated genetic experiments on different planets by advanced ETs could create evolving life forms with a range of attitudes from friendly to neutral to hostile, whether they are organic or inorganic intelligence. And I always have wondered what Presidents FDR, Truman, and Eisenhower actually learned about other intelligences interacting with Earth during World War II and afterward, that led to the strict policies of denials and lies about UFO phenomena, and what was behind President Reagan's references in the 1980s to the possibility of, quote, some outside universal threat and an alien force already among us, close quote. Those were President Reagan's words in a speech before the United Nations General Assembly on September 21st, 1987, 6 years after he became president.
Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world. And yet, I ask you, is not an alien force already among us?
And I think he already knew, and we're going to get into this now. Only 6 years before that UN speech, President Reagan was scheduled to be in Camp David, Maryland, on March 6 to 8 of 1981 with intelligence advisors. The highly secret and classified goal was to brief President Reagan about 5 different extraterrestrial civilizations, including one considered highly hostile that can camouflage in blonde-haired human body containers. Directing the meeting with insiders from the DIA, supported by analysts from NSA and CIA, was Reagan's newly appointed CIA director, William Casey, shown here with President Reagan. A transcript of the alleged Camp David discussion first emerged in 2005 at a website called serpo.org. That's capital SERPO.org. I shared a copy of the Serpo-Reagan transcript with a Washington, D.C. government source educated about alien presences on Earth and beyond. He told me he knew there definitely was such a briefing with President Reagan at Camp David about UFOs and ETs on March 6 to 8, 1981. And that Washington intel analyst confirmed for me that these 2 sketches are of extraterrestrial biological entities that our government refers to as EBINs, all caps, an acronym that means extraterrestrial biological entities. These are from Zeta Reticuli 1 and 2, a binary star system that is about 40 light years from Earth. They are supposed to be friendly to humans, but he, like so many, have attached these words to every discussion I've had with somebody in Washington about the Greys. Yes, they have been friendly to us, but they also lie to us. Close quote. Today, I can add the probability that types called EBA1, depicted in the charcoal on the left, may be the genetic creators of the EBA type 2 smaller androids shown on the right that also do work on this planet Earth and beyond. That means Earth human abductees have usually been handled by the small, black-eyed little guys who are biological clones that work for the Ebens. This www.serpo.org/release27a.php is a quote transcript of a classified tape recording made at Camp David, Maryland during a presidential briefing regarding the subject of, all caps, unidentified flying objects and extraterrestrial visitation of Earth. President Ronald Reagan was present. The recording was made between March 6 and 8, 1981, close quote. This 27A Reagan briefing was included in a series of 35 reports beginning in 2005 that were posted on the internet in order to, quote, facilitate the gradual release of confidential documents pertaining to a top secret exchange program of 12 U.S. military personnel to Serpo, a planet of Zeta Reticuli. The trip to Serpo allegedly happened between the years 1965 to 1978. The information began to be released on November 2nd, 2005 by a retired senior official within the U.S. Defense Intelligence Agency, known as DIA, who calls himself anonymous. He reported that he is not acting individually and is part of a group of 6 DIA personnel working together as an alliance, 3 current and 3 former employees, close quote. Leading the Camp David discussion was CIA Director William Casey, along with advisors from the DIA, NSA, and CIA, plus a caretaker of the ET history. It was only 2 months after Ronald Reagan first took the oath of president, excuse me, on January 20th, 1981. Here now are some excerpts from that briefing. I would give anything to have the ability to film this as an interview, so you'll have to do with me as second. The caretaker says to President Reagan, quote, the United States of America has been visited by extraterrestrial visitors since 1947. We have proof of that, close quote. The truth is, this was not a true statement to Reagan. The truth is there was allegedly a crash retrieval 6 years before Roswell events. That was in Cape Girardeau, Missouri, allegedly in April 1941, on the 12th, I have been told, discussed in leaked Majestic 12 documents from which a, quote, neutronic propulsion device, close quote, was retrieved and later delivered to physicist Robert Oppenheimer when he began work at Los Alamos, New Mexico, to produce the first American atomic bomb. The caretaker, talking to Reagan. However, we also have some proof that Earth has been visited for many thousands of years by various races of extraterrestrial visitors. Mr. President, I'll just refer to these visitors as ETs. In July 1947, a remarkable event occurred in New Mexico. During a storm, 2 ET spacecraft crashed. One crashed southwest of Corona, New Mexico, and one crashed near Dadle, New Mexico. The U.S. Army eventually found both sites and recovered all of the debris and one live alien. I'll refer to this live alien as EVA-1. We also refer to it as Noah. President Reagan. Can we classify them, connect them with anything earthly? The caretaker. No, Mr. President. They don't have any similar characteristics of a human, with the exception of their eyes, ears, and a mouth. Their internal body organs are different. Their skin is entirely different from human. We could not classify any part of the aliens with humans. They had blood and skin, although considerably different than human skin. Their eyes had 2 different eyelids, probably because their home planet was very bright. Zeta Reticuli 1 and 2, it is a binary star system, and it allegedly has been described by many more than one that there is a dimming of light, but it is never dark. caretaker. The distance from Earth to Serpo is about 40 light years. They can travel that distance in about 9 of our months. That is a lie. It is my understanding that the ratio is, with the Alcubierre warp drive point to point, pulling your destination to you through a gravity manipulation and then surfing the gravity waves after the manipulation, that you can travel something like 50 light years in 5 24-hour Earth days. I am no scientist, but as I mentioned earlier, the ETs can travel that great distance by means of space tunnels. That is a correct sentence to the president. They seem to be able to bend the distance from one point in space to another, and just how they do this must be explained scientifically. Space tunnels and surfing gravity waves are what the Alcubierre warp drive would use to travel rapidly point to point in the universe. And I have talked with a physicist who told me that Greys do have Alcubierre warp drive travel through space tunnels, and that what I just said, it will take them, whether it's 40 or 50 light years, it takes only 5 24-hour days of Earth to travel that distance using the warp drive. President Reagan, are they all friendly? Advisor number 1, Mr. President, that is a very difficult question to answer. There are many parameters that we follow to evaluate the threat. However, we have little intelligence on 4 of the 5 extraterrestrial civilizations. We have plenty of intel on the Ebens. They've given us everything we ask for. They have also helped us to understand the other 4 species. But I'm afraid to say, Mr. President, please don't misunderstand my words, but we think one of the species is very hostile. CIA Director William Casey. Mr. President, we have intelligence that would indicate this one species of aliens have abducted people from Earth. They have performed scientific and medical tests on these humans. To the best of our knowledge, no humans have been killed, but as advisor number 1 stated, the intelligence is from witnesses, and we haven't thoroughly evaluated this intelligence. And then CIA Director Casey asked the caretaker to give President Reagan the names of 5 known alien groups. Okay, Mr. President, the 5 species are called: 1, Ebens; 2, Archeloids; 3, Quadloids; 4, Heptaloids; and 5, the Tronoloids. These names were given to the alien species by the intelligence community, specifically by MJ5. The Ebens are friendly. The Tronoloids are the dangerous ones. We call the hostile aliens simply that, HAVs, meaning hostile alien visitors. MJ12 placed that code on them back in the 1950s. MJ5, that would mean that he was a member of Majestic 12 that was formed in September of 1947 by President Harry S. Truman after the July 1947 Roswell and the other UFO crashes. MJ12 was a secret committee of scientists, military leaders, businessmen, and government officials under an executive order by US President Harry S. Truman to monitor and analyze the interactions of non-human intelligences with Earth and to organize back engineering of advanced ET technologies retrieved from downed ET craft and keep all of it from the world public. President Reagan, you mean these HAVs have been visiting us and kidnapping our people since the 1950s? CIA Director Casey. Mr. President, we have some indication that they might have been doing this for some time, and he means way longer than the 20th century. But we can be sure that the Ebens have never done this. They are extremely peaceful and would not harm a living soul, including animals, close quote. That's not at all accurate. There was a couple in Colorado abducted by these Ebens. The husband sketched them. He was a commercial artist by profession. He made these sketches under hypnosis. Hypnosis that was done by a friend of Dr. Leo Sprinkles, Richard Sigismund in Boulder, and I was there for 2 years that we did all of this work. If so, then the Ebens have abducted humans as well. And I can't help but wonder who is trying to fool who in all of this.
Where did they get the 1950s from when you said since the 1950s? Do you know the date?
Nobody is handing us information. We're lucky to have this much because of the Serpo leak. And Serpo is controversial because like every single thing, like that postcard, every time you feel like you have a solid fact, somebody will come in with something else. And we are living in a country that is no longer a government of, by, and for the people, and has not been for decades. And the ability for all of the information to be mixed, matched, chopped, and thrown out, it is the big problem. But I wouldn't be doing this today if I do not feel. I have too many sources who say Reagan was given this briefing in March 6 to 8, 1981. So I'm reporting this, but the lies, the level of human lies, and the level of extraterrestrial lies are huge. And that makes me extremely nervous as a Homo sapiens sapien. If you assume that it is true that extraterrestrial biological entities manipulated DNA and already evolving primates to create us, which ones were the original progenitors of Homo sapiens sapien? Probably the Anunnaki. The Anunnaki did not prove themselves to be gloriously spiritual beings. So why were we created in the first place? And then you begin to realize in this landscape that I'm now, for the first time in my professional career, I'm seeing that people who have been working for the government for 50 years on this, more than one. Linda, we completely relate to how you feel. We are angry. We think that humans should know the whole truth because this is so complicated and there are serious threats. Are we going to be living on a planet that goes right up to the day where the government knows exactly what is coming and we are never given one word of preparation? Because what? The power brokers of Earth, they care more about themselves and the stock market and their money and their control than, God help us, if the poor, stupid, humble civilization learns anything. Their stock market will be messed up, right? There's just something about all of us that is so unfair. Forgive me.
No, thank you.
43 years I've been
Thank you.
doing this. I want to make sure I'm doing this right. Yeah, here, now this is Reagan. My God, just knowing we have names for these things is amazing. Which one did we capture? Casey, CIA director. Mr. President, we have a tronoloid, but it is dead. We captured it in 1961 in Canada, and we had it in captivity until 1962 when it died. Please receive what this implies. Our government knew about the tronoloids in 1960 and 61. And we're at 2022. Mr. President, these hostile aliens are pretty sneaky. They seem to appear and disappear, which is beyond our technical understanding. They also seem to float or defy gravity. We have actual photographs of them doing this, and they would mean, it's not photographs, they would mean video or film, recorded by a military intelligence unit in New Mexico. Mr. President, from Advisor 4, the tronoloid technology is probably 1,000 years more advanced than ours, maybe even more. Some of their materials are not found on this planet, strange materials, nothing like Earth. We found several strange spots on the Eben and tronoloid star charts, and we concluded these spots were space tunnels as the Ebens describe, shortcuts from one point of space to another. According to the Ebens, the tronoloids use a different form of propulsion altogether to everybody else. That the insects are using matter and antimatter, in which a great deal of energy is released, but we humans do not have the capability to do this. Advisor number 4, Mr. President, these tronoloid aliens can imitate humans. They can look like blonde humans. However, they are not blonde. They are really ugly looking insects, but they can imitate looking like humans. President Reagan. Well, how in the world do they do that? Advisor. You can hear Reagan do that, right? Advisor. They have the ability to change their bodies. As I said before, they are 1,000 years ahead of us in technology and probably every other science. But which blondes do they imitate? There are tall Nordics and shorter blondes that have been sketched by people in the abduction syndrome and are supposed to be from a variety of solar systems such as Sirius, the Pleiades, Procyon, and more. But the hostile insects who camouflage as blondes are said to be from the Epsilon Eridani solar system that I showed you around there, only 10 light years from Earth. Closer, the insects are closer to Earth than any of the Nordics. Advisor number 4. The Ebens gave us that Epsilon Eridani information, meaning that's where the insects are. We know the star group. It is close to our solar system in astronomical terms, maybe 10.5 light years away. The tronoloids on Epsilon Eridani are closer to us on Earth than the Ebens are in the Zeta Reticuli binary star system that is approximately 40 light years. This star map shows star systems that lie within 12.5 light years from our Earth sun, which is the yellow circle at the center of the blue circle lines, and then to the lower left, only 10.47 light years from our sun is Epsilon Eridani, shown as an orange circle to represent its cooler temperature as an orange dwarf star compared to our yellow G spectrum sun. But at least this gives you like a slice, and you can see between the sun and Epsilon Eridani where the insects are, it's not a big deal for Alcubierre warp drive. Here again is the list of 5 extraterrestrial species given to President Reagan, in which he was told the Ebens genetically created the next 2 on this list. The Ebens, line 1, created the archeloids and the quadloids on number 2 and number 3, and perhaps the haploids, but no one anywhere has gotten any details from anyone about who the haploids are. It's not exactly clear if the Ebens also genetically made the trontoloid insects on Epsilon Eridani, which, if that is true, then the complexity of genetic makeup and distribution in this part of the Milky Way galaxy could come down to maybe only one or two progenitor civilizations, and that we would end up learning that we Homo sapien babies could be attacked insidiously from within by insects, and the insects and humans were both made by the same progenitor. It's not exactly clear if the Ebens also genetically made the tronoloid insects on Epsilon Eridani, or why those insects are so hostile and can camouflage themselves as blonde-haired Earth humans. The Ebens have genetically created and cloned many species, including, this is an illustration of the archeloid on that list, which is a cloned biological entity, also known in the CIA lingo as a CBE, cloned biological entity. This illustration is from the 1974 book UFOs, Past, Present, and Future by Robert Emenegger and Alan Sandler, and they both worked for the CIA. They told that to my face, but they would not say that in public. They told me directly that this drawing was made from an actual 16 millimeter film frame of the alien being and the UFO craft. It landed in between White Sands Proving Ground and Holloman Air Force Base on April 25th, 1964. This archeloid has a big hooked nose, yellow vertical pupils like a snake or a cat, enlarged dark eyes, a head with a raised knob on top covered by a layered headdress reminiscent of the Sumerians of Mesopotamia, large ears with some kind of technology dropping down like an earring. Its left hand holds a rod with a spiral around it that was identified as a language translator. It interacts directly with the language center of the human brain, producing telepathic communication in any language anywhere on Earth. The archeloid stood near the doorway of an egg-shaped craft while two Ebens interacted with our American military and a scientist. Allegedly that day we gave the Ebens back some of their dead bodies from UFO crashes, and they gave us more technology. Here is an ancient carved stone of the Sumerian sun god Shamash on the right, to compare to the archeloid in the New Mexico craft on the left. The name archeloid given by US government insiders probably relates to the ancient Greek word archon, meaning ruler or lord. Shamash and the archeloid both have ropey headdresses, commonly depicted in Sumerian clay images. Shamash is holding a rod in his right hand. The implication is that Shamash, 5,000 or more years ago, and the being sketched in the 1964 New Mexico meeting are both archeloids. Let that sink in. 5,000 to 10,000 years ago, and visitors coming in 1964 with the same language translator technology, the same ropey headdress. And that both have rods to communicate with and manage and control the Homo sapiens sapien that the archeloid and Eben extraterrestrials allegedly created by manipulating DNA in already evolving primates to produce workers for Mesopotamia that were ruled by off-world overlords. But evolving primates were deliberately kept ignorant of the true big picture. Government insiders ran scared when they realized in 1964 that the ancient Mesopotamian overlords were actually some form of archeloids that humans have worshipped as Sumerian or Anunnaki gods. How ironic that the Ebens made the Archeloids, and that the Ebens and Archeloids made Homo sapien, who then worshipped the Archeloids. Other intelligences manipulated DNA in already evolving primates to create various models of Homo sapien that have been subjects of an Eben social experiment for thousands of years. And that could explain why Earth has been such a haunted planet with so many mysterious phenomena, and why power structures have always ruled with secrecy on this planet to date. Do the Archeloids and Quadloids know their true history any more than Homo sapiens sapien knows ours? I'm now in honor of the History of Conscious Life Expo. I'm going to share with you, it is now 6:30 and I'm supposed to leave at 7. I think I can do this and still give you a couple of...
7:30. You have another hour.
Oh, okay. Then I'll definitely be able to take your question. But I thought long and hard about this. I have decided that if I feel that I cannot share this material with an audience, even one this small, in a way, I'm doing the same thing as the government. And this is very hard because the information, all of the information that I have been receiving from some sources gives you pause, makes me say, if I were in charge, what would I do? Would I want everybody to know everything that I've just shared? And I think if you disagree, tell me. If some of us who are not skating on bullshit, that there really is substance, real people with real jobs, with real power, who are reaching out to somebody like me and others, because they are so frustrated by what they know, and yet they see that the policies going forward in the so-called UAP, brand new Pentagon permanent office that has now been officially confirmed in January. If it's going to just be another layer of bureaucratic, another layer to do this, while they're pretending, it's total pretense, that they're actually getting ready to do any kind of honest congressional hearings. I have been called by 2 or 3 people. They've asked me, would I be willing to talk? And the thing now, and this is why I guess I'm leveling in a strange way, it isn't anymore like, could it really be that there are extraterrestrials, you know? You guys, I am reporting to you the truth. But this is a truth that when you stand back, I've tried to do exercises in my own mind. Could I see what I've said to you in the last 30 minutes on CBS, CNN, MSNBC? And when you start doing those thought exercises of this, what I've presented to you, with images and the statements, what would the global public reaction be? See, the government thinks that humans just cannot handle any of it. That's the postcard. You have one half in the animal mutilation. But what you don't have is what is behind, which I think this is the surface. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and you can tell me if you think it's a mistake
No,
or it's the right thing to do.
it's the right thing.
And this is not going to be the searing material. This is going to be a voice that I know who they are. I know where they work. I know they have been in an advanced aerospace engineering position for 50 years. That's the person behind what I'm going to read. And there's a lot more, but he asked if I would send him a transcript of a program I did on my Earth Files YouTube broadcast about the Serpo material. So he had not seen the broadcast, but somebody had told him. And he asked if I would send him the script. So that's what I did. And then I understand that from him that he actually watched the program. Linda, I was glad you sent me a transcript of your program. I apologize that I'm not a social media person with all the different things to watch, such as YouTube and the like. I very rarely watch TV. I really don't have the time with all my commitments. I did read it carefully, meaning the transcript. That includes what I have shared with you tonight in a sort of an abbreviated form. And most of the material in your email script is factual. And if you knew who this is and what they do, when I read that, it was the only things that need some additional help is with the Serpo information. This particular project got out into the public domain without any help of individuals directly involved with the Serpo program, but what he is saying is that he knows about the Serpo program, and he knows enough to tell me that what I reported was at least factual. It was a few people that worked in a classified agency that shared information on the building of a very classified military spacecraft. During this program, 3 individuals came across some senior engineers that made the mention of the ability of a cultural exchange program between military people and an older off-world species to better formulate a strategic relationship to better control and understand the unfriendly species we were made aware of before the 1980s. The story that got out was mainly secondhand information that was related to the 3 individuals working in tandem with these senior level program engineers. For example, when the species you referred to as the Ebens travel in space, their craft do not take 9 months. The Serpo material, as I told you, said 9 months. It does not take 9 months to travel the approximately 40 light-year distance. We are talking about a civilization that is many thousands of years ahead of us in technology and science. There is no off-world civilization that is traveling this way in a long-range space travel. In simple terms, they use a quantum information transfer, meaning they dematerialize and rematerialize to a very long distance. Without going into great detail of the science of this technique, an easy way to understand this point-to-point travel is to compare it to a fax machine as dull as that may sound, a fax machine takes a material object, like a letter, and converts it to information, transmits this information to a new location, and is restored to the original letter at the new location. And when I read that, I had done an interview with Adam Burns. Some of you may or may not have seen that broadcast. It's one of the best, I think, done with somebody who has been periodically abducted. And Adam Burns had sent me photographs of the patterns of bruises on his body, legs, hips, back. And he said, Linda, I've been taken enough times now that I think I'm finally beginning to understand where all these bruises come from. He said, they are deconstructing me at the molecular level. Then they are taking the deconstructed molecular level and they're putting it in their beam technology. And then I come out on the planet or the craft, and it is a reconstruction of the molecular of the molecules of my body. And that is what Star Trek was showing in the 60s. And I was told that the producer behind Star Trek, I was told this 15 years ago, worked for the CIA. Do you remember his name?
Gene Roddenberry.
Roddenberry. Gene Roddenberry had a contract with the Central Intelligence Agency, is what I have been told. And that Emenager and Sandler and all those guys that 10 years later came into all of the New Mexico, the ropey-headed meeting that we had out in the desert, they were part of the same program 10 years later, all of them working. Sandler and Emenager told me to my face, we did this for the CIA. Just like the day the Earth stood still was a CIA paid for script and production. They opened up what is called a cutout in Los Angeles. This is a production office to produce a film, and behind all of it was the Central Intelligence Agency. And that the beam technology, they're talking to me, we introduced honest material in Star Trek at the request of the Central Intelligence Agency, and that it was a test of public reaction in the form of fiction. This is what is basically being described, that if you think of a fax machine, it's what Adam Burns was saying. They have the ability to deconstruct you molecularly, put you in the beam. Same thing with the cattle. All those cattle seen going up beams and then coming down. Same thing.
But how does it get the consciousness there? Or the consciousness follows the molecular structure?
My dear Alan, if I could answer all of your questions, I would. But it would answer what has been one of the mysteries going all the way back to Bud Hopkins when I finished doing Strange Harvest in 1979 to 1980. And then Bud Hopkins' Missing Time came out. You had these two bookends. You had human abductions and you had animal mutilations. And Hopkins and I would be invited over and over and over and over again on radio and television and to conferences to talk about abductions and to talk about mutilations. In the abductions at that time, if Bud were here, he would agree, were strange bruises, sometimes looking very similar on human to human. The bruises were a puzzle. The people were not beat up. It was a very delicate kind of bruise. This is the first time that there's ever been any explanation to me that would tie in to Adam Burns and the idea that would explain the decades of the abductions and bruises. That may not be interesting to you, but it really is to me. Now, he said, so he's explained the facts, used the facts analogy of transferring matter into energy and coming out in a long distance. But we're talking about light years here. This same process is done with these UFO craft, using a very special metamaterial in the outer hull of their craft and quantum tunneling technology. Call it quantum jumping if you want, but this is how they travel very large distances quickly. When we travel in space with our craft, we have to have the stellar area of the travel mapped very carefully. He's saying that when humans are not helped by the Blondes and the Nordics, we're trying, we're being taught, but that we are clumsy compared, and that we have to have help going, if we're going to try doing a tunnel, a space tunnel, that we have to have the Nordics and the Blondes help clear, because their ships do it automatically through hugely advanced computer systems. The whole craft is a computer. We're not anywhere near there. And they're trying to help us use our crude equipment to do what they do with very advanced technology. And that's when he says, the reason that we have to have the travel mapped very carefully is that we are traveling in a crude manner compared to how they travel. We have extensive mapping missions to make sure that we don't run into anything. Our technology is very crude compared to their way of travel. Also, the idea that is batted about is that somehow Werner von Braun was able to figure out and help a group of scientists back engineer a recovered down UFO craft, but that is absolutely laughable to say the least. It took many decades to even begin to understand these craft, and it was only recently that we discovered the way the metamaterial worked for spaceflight, which might be the bismuth, magnesium, zinc that was shipped to Art Bell and me, and that I spent from '96 until 2018 doing various investigations. That bismuth, magnesium, zinc I know is used as a skin in some of these craft. The Alcubierre drive is the only way we humans are able to travel in deep space currently. To give some understanding of faster than light travel, think of it this way. If a star we want to travel is 10 light years distance from our solar system, if we travel 10 times the speed of light, it will take 1 year to get there. With the Alcubierre drive working approximately at 80%, we can travel that same 10 light years distance in about 5 24-hour days. So you can see we are experiencing faster than light travel many times the speed of light, which is supposed to be impossible. We do not push the Alcubierre drive more than this percentage of 80% of use for specific classified reasons. It is rare that it is operational at this high percentage in normal exploration space travel. We are still very much taking our time and exploring our stellar neighborhood. We have other off-world individuals on board our craft helping us to understand how to travel in deep space, but primarily their task is to help us map space without getting lost or coming across others and being able to communicate with them in a non-threatening manner. Think of it this way. We humans are in driver's education, and we are the students in our new self-built vehicles. I do know that disinformation campaigns do occur, and more often than most people think, mainly to deter people from discovering the reality of certain things or programs that are extremely classified. I have been around the intelligence circles all of my career, and something did happen under the Kennedy administration, and Reagan terminated that program. it did involve an exchange of sorts, but not the Serpo details. Linda, many people who work in both government and the military are formulating the process for disclosure, and I can assure you that is occurring. People I trust that are involved in actively working on this issue as well. This will happen in the very near future. It will not be announced by the president, but rather by a designated group of the scientific community and a few key public figures. And I can add, I have been told by someone else, they are really hoping that they can use the Webb telescope. And they know that Webb at 4.2 light years from Earth, you could aim that telescope. They know there are structures on a planet in that solar system of Alpha Centauri and Alpha Proxima. And that they would be able to have a breaking news. Here is the Webb, and it is looking at a city in a planet around Alpha Centauri, and we can see the buildings. First proof of other consciousness in the universe. And that's what could become. Getting back to the Reagan briefing, that information was known before Reagan became president. It was decided to give Reagan the information mainly to develop the SDI space-based weapons technology to deter the aggressive off-world species that we were made aware of, the insects. We have used this weapons technology on multiple occasions to fire upon and down these craft. One instance was caught on camera by one of the shuttle flights by accident. If any of you know anything about that video, maybe it was never ever released even by accident, but I sure would like to find that video. On a further note, the weapons technology used in the SDI program is very effective and is in operation currently. As far as what agency put the intelligence information together for Reagan, it was strictly Defense Intelligence Agency, not any other agency and no other individuals. DIA runs, quote, the program, close quote. Lou Elizondo, his career was DIA. Reagan was the impetus that gave funding that was needed to engineer the SDI technology and put it into space. In the military, it is always understood that until you know something is not a threat, you always take the position that it is a threat until you know for sure otherwise. Reagan understood this and made some difficult decisions under extreme circumstances. No telling where we would be if he had not acted accordingly to the information given to him. As far as the names of the off-world groups you mentioned, it may be accurate, but I have not come across those titles in my interaction with folks that I have worked with. He means the Ebens and the Archeloids, the Tronoloids, and that list. In my experience, they are giving names usually based on the description of how the beings look, the skin color, hair color, eye color, or other noticeable features that set them apart from other species. If they are indigenous to a particular star system, oftentimes they will be classified or titled using the home star designation, such as PA22 or something similar, which would be Procyon A22. I am truly impressed, Linda, on how accurate you are on these subjects. And I can understand that my reading a lot may put some of you to sleep. But I feel that what I'm sharing with you, I guess, why it's important to me. It is the first time in my existence that I feel like I'm telling even a tiny room of people. Those words are from somebody that if you knew what they did, if you knew that they've been working on this for 50 years, if you knew how frustrated they feel that we are a planet that is still in the dark. And he doesn't feel that we should be in the dark. Other men who have come to, they're all men. I have never yet had a female of any kind ever have approached in any way. So the men, for the first time that I have seen in 43 years, they're the ones who are coming and saying, we are frustrated, we have watched you, and we want you to know. And my goal would be to see everything I've told you and a whole hell of a lot more be presented on all of the networks of this planet in the same time around the world in satellites, so that every human being in the 8 billion Homo sapiens sapien family heard this is breaking news at what hour of the day it would be, and we would all as a planet be introduced to the truth that we are not alone in this universe, that the galaxies are teeming with consciousness, and until that happens, we are an abused species. Thank you.
So you're taking questions now?
Yeah.
That agency that you talked about, could that be the Galileo project that's gathering all these scientists together, that is planning some big announcements?
I do.
You do?
Yeah. But I don't have it on a piece of paper saying, but I've only read you a tiny excerpt, starting, 4 months ago. I was getting, 4 months ago, I was getting information, Linda, by summer of 2022. And I also have had calls about, I don't know if it is DIA. It could very well be that DIA is orchestrating all of this in bits and pieces, and that then they can control everything a little bit more. This widget, they've got somebody controls, and this widget, and this announcement, and this, instead of let's just tell the world. And the congressional hearing that this brand new law, which has the unpronounceable acronym, and it could be that Gillibrand might have been approached by one of the agencies. We need help. We want to slow this down. Put in a proposal that will make everybody feel like we are making progress with a quote-unquote permanent UFO office, but it's going to be bullshit. I mean, that's one possibility. The other is, she's blonde.
She's annoying.
She may have a reason to get involved. And we laugh about this, I can't help it. But the truth is, the deeper you get into genetic manipulation of already evolving primates to create Homo sapiens sapien, you run up instantly against the wall of racism. Meaning, if humanoids are created by genetic manipulation, and they're throughout the entire universe, is my understanding, this form, headish, torso-ish, arms, like that's it. That's the humanoid template of this universe. Then, why is it on planet Earth there are 5 races, or fundamental: red, brown, yellow, black, white? Why? If we knew the answer to that, we might have insights into other lies and misrepresentations by all of them. Perhaps by the blondes, the whites, the grays, the AI. And I really, honestly, I do not know. I do not have an insight about why there are these 5 races, and that from time immemorial, the 5 races do not get along. Was this a planet picked for a very specific experiment, which the Ebens do? The Ebens are planetary experimenters. Created all kinds of life, like those five, the top three, they were created. Then the government says, the government, meaning the people working for various agencies who ever talk, when they say the Ebens have done everything we've ever asked, they give us technology, they're friendly, ... but they lie. I even had those words sent to me in a Christmas card back in the 1980s after I had done A Stranger. I got a Christmas card from somebody saying the Greys are supposed to be our friends, ... but they lie. It's the same message today. What is it that what is it that the agencies have experienced that they will work with the Greys, but they're always on guard because they lie? I feel that, like the Hall of Mirrors with a quicksand floor, why I use that title. Every time I think I'm getting to a point where there is some clarity, the whole issue of what is the true agenda, not only of humans, but the different non-humans. And in case no one has ever said this to you, this is a fact. We have a Space Force now that is in 22 different Milky Way solar systems. You can take that to the bank. They are in 22 different solar systems. They have been there since 1972, or at least in the process of getting to them. There are 168 civilizations in this side of the Milky Way, meaning if you looked at where our little arm is, and you took that as a region, there are 168 now known civilizations to DIA, CIA, NSA, DARPA, and the Pentagon. That's just this side of the Milky Way. So, are there 1,000 civilizations in the Milky Way galaxy? 10,000? And Andromeda, I've talked with one military guy who said he's been on 2 missions to Andromeda. The disconnect between a certain small percentage of humans on this planet and the rest of the planet, that to me, this is abusive. It is opening up the possibility of the planet being run by a corporation or a corporate mind.
Well, I've heard Elizondo was going to the UN.
I hope he does, because it would be an appeal to the world. I don't know. But do you guys understand what I'm saying? This is like we are standing on a line in which, if the next opening is going to be another lie, and that what is truly behind the control of every single thing happening on this planet is by a unit that will never be named, no one will ever know, but they're already the power brokers of Earth. Do you know, this is a fact, do you know that the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter has already been divided up between corporations? For the gold and the molybdenum and metals are a big deal. Before we've even been told the truth as a planet, corporations, powerful individuals who make trillions, teraflops of money, they have what do you call that? They're handed on a silver platter, while the rest of the planet is suffering in so many ways. I'm not a bleeding heart, but I like fairness. And there are billion consciousnesses on the earth. And it almost has the feel that the corporate elite, the power broker elite, they want only the number of those 8 billion to end up surviving that would support what they've already divided up out in the asteroid belt on Mars. I'm assuming Mars is also divided up. Literally, real estate, I believe, somebody told me that there have been real estate deals on Mars. And you think, none of this is happening with a sense of global humanity. Everything that is happening is being controlled and operated by people that are paid to lie and to deceive, and they are the intelligence. I know some of these people, I like them, but they're paid to lie, they're paid to deceive. And therefore, and look at China, look at Russia and the Ukraine situation. Why is that happening now? Is Putin, and I'm not kidding about this, is Putin involved in one of the theatrical productions that are leading up to finally the earth being told, but it will be told in a constrained way, or something that's already been divided, that the earth as a global unit is not going to care one flip about you or me. Yeah.
In all your years of research with whistleblowers, top scientists who come up with closet, has anyone in the scientific, military, or corporate communities suggested that there might be a spiritual strategy of protection against the negative approachment?
Never. And I think some of you have heard me describe how in 1999, I was approached by a man in the World Bank. He had seen me at a conference in San Francisco, contacted me after the conference, wanted to sit down and talk with me about UFOs and ETs, whatever I was presenting then. We did. Then he would come to where I lived at the time, which was in Philadelphia, and he would call and say, can we meet and I'll take you to lunch or dinner or whatever, and we would talk about UFOs. And then in November of 1999, he called and he said, would you be willing to travel for a meeting that I would like to set up with a man who is retiring from the Defense Intelligence Agency, where he has worked for 23 years on extraterrestrial matters with Earth. That's exactly how he said it. And it took about a month, and all three of us traveled. And so I met the DIA analyst meeting and with him, and we let him tell us where we would be, where we would go. And without talking, the physical area where we were, he said, just follow me. And we ended up being able to walk to a sort of river bay area, and there were a lot of boats. And some of the boats had running engines. And there was one area where people could sit. And as we approached and we sat down, he looked up and he said, I do not think our satellites can penetrate this white noise. And that's how the meeting began. And we were there for 7 hours on my watch, and it was our bladders that broke the meeting. And in those 7 hours, he began with, I have worked for the Defense Intelligence Agency for 23 years in analyzing the competition and conflict of 3 extraterrestrial civilizations that have been warring with each other on this planet for at least 270 million years. Our government has proof of that. That's how it began. And during those 7 hours, if I boiled it all down, he never mentioned anything about insects. But this is what he told me, among many things. The three competing civilizations he described as being tall blondes, reptilians, and grays. And he said they have been warring with each other over this planet for 270 million years. We have proof of that. And when I said, what is the proof? He said, Linda, it is too dangerous. If I told you, both you and I essentially could be terminated. I can't imagine what's on the other side of that statement. Meaning, what is the proof 270 million years ago that would be that dangerous? But he then broke down and said, you need to understand that these three competing civilizations on this planet, each one wants to eliminate the others. And each one can clone the bodies of their enemies and inhabit. The reptilians clone grays and blondes. The blondes clone grays and reptilians. The grays clone reptilians and blondes. All three can take over any one of a body that it wants. And he said it is extremely difficult. And remember this, if you remember nothing else, we need technology to tell who or what is in bodies on this planet. For those of you who have, I don't know if there's anybody in here, I don't think there is, who's been with me at a crop circle research. I started going to England into crop circles in 1992. And by 1995, it only took 3 years, where it had been peaceful and beautiful and magical and wondrous and not hoaxers. By 1995, a group that I came to learn, this is a fact, I cannot give you a piece of paper, but this is a fact. A group of men organized by MI6 in collaboration with the Central Intelligence Agency in the United States were working, and they were paid by those agencies, and they called themselves Team Satan. And they left the number 666 in the fields, on barns, on cars, and pretty soon, from 1995 on, this incredible phenomena of crop formations, mathematical language being laid down on our surface of our Earth, was hijacked and perverted into this 666 Satan sort of thing. And one day I was in a field and a man approached me. I would later learn he worked for the CIA. And he asked me what I thought of the crop formations, and I said they're a serious mystery. And he said, well, I know someone who works for the Central Intelligence Agency. And when anybody says it that way, I know it's them, but they're always, it's got to be somebody else. The CIA is working with a bank of Cray computers and satellites. And they have been trying to get photographs of every crop formation in the sequence of time that they are put on the Earth and the specific latitude, longitude, and they are feeding it into a bank of Crays because the CIA is convinced that this is mathematical language that is being laid down on this planet as tests of the accuracy of time travel. So Let your mind be provoked. Well, let's see. Am I at the...
You're good, you have another 15 minutes.
Are you bored by all of this?
No, you can talk for hours.
I have a question for
Yeah.
you. You've noticed, haven't you, that these alien races appear to be waking and dreaming at the same time, right? You heard that before? That their state of consciousness doesn't separate the waking from dreaming as human beings.
No, I have never heard that before, because how the hell would humans know if ETs were waking and dreaming at the same time? How would we know?
That's a very common theme in the abduction reports. We've never picked
But
that up.
you're talking about humans assuming and making a statement about something that ETs that we don't know much about.
They claim in their experiences that the aliens tell them that we dream all the time.
Humans dream.
No, that they dream all the time. That they are awake and are dreaming at the same time, although it's been expressed as we are dreaming continuously. And human beings separate our waking and our dreaming.
They're in one thing.
I've never heard anything like that. No. Let me give you one example that I hope would be of help to all of you, no matter what is ever announced. This is firsthand to me from the CIA person who experienced this. It was in the 1970s. It was a dam in a small town in Arizona. He gets called, is flown from the East Coast to meet up with military and other operatives, because the government does not know what has happened to this dam in Arizona, but was reported as UFOs over the dam at the time that it cracked or disintegrated. And eventually, I heard this directly from this person who approached me at a conference. And his story, I think, is an accurate insight into human and ET alien communication problems. He said that his superior officer asked him to go to a specific place in this town where the dam had been basically destroyed and the town had been flooded with water, and they'd had no idea. And he said, we reached out to the Greys, that we have the ability to send signals, that the Greys have helped us. That part is true. They have helped us, even if they sometimes lie. And the Greys came in, and his superior officer said, I want to use this experience for you to have the direct experience of getting communication from one of the Greys. So he said, his superior laid out, they have agreed, there will be a Grey, it will not float, and this is true. The Greys prefer not to walk, not to interact with floors, grounds, but they have this pen, and they neutralize gravity to their body, to anything they want to with this pen. But that, as he said, it freaks humans out. And so we asked the Grey, will you walk? And the Grey agreed. And the superior officer said to him, you will want to laugh, and that's fine. You want to laugh. It's going to look like Donald Duck coming to you, and he's agreed. And the man said, I said to him an obscenity. I'm not a teenager. I can handle it. And he said the superior officer said, I want you to know, because you think you're ready. And this is why I want you to experience this. I've asked, I want the Grey to go in the back, and then it's going to come up straight towards you, and about 5 to 6 feet out from you, you're going to begin to shake. You are going to feel such terror that it will be like when we do flamethrower warfare. But I'm ordering you, he had a wry smile when he said that, I'm ordering you to stand your ground. I don't want you to faint. I want you to experience what it is like to get communication from a Grey. And he said, I just thought that was, like he's treating me like a child. And he said, here comes the gray. It gets down, turns, and he wanted to laugh because it did look like Donald Duck out of a cartoon. And he's thinking, oh, this is just bullshit. So the gray's coming up. He's watching it mildly amused. And he said, Linda, it got out about 5 to 6 feet from me, and I began to shake. I began to shake in my entire body, and I was embarrassed. The superior officer and my fellow officers are back behind me. I know they're watching me, and my body is shaking, and I can't get it to stop. And he said the officer had told him, wait for the head to tilt up. And when the eyes connect with your eyes, you will no longer be in control. But I'm ordering you to stand, and I want you to tell me what happens. So now he's got that in his head, and he's shaking, and the head begins to tilt up. And he said, Linda, I don't know if the world is ready for this. He said, I did what I had been ordered to do. I looked. I didn't change my eyes. And in a split second, that those large black, whatever the hell they are, I remember him saying, I don't know if they're lenses or organic. When my eyes and those eyes were at the same level, he said, in my consciousness came a movie, just like watching a movie, a Hollywood movie. It had gold symbols, probably Sanskrit, that were three-dimensionally like surfaced above every one of the images. There was sound, there was temperature, there was feel, there was everything. And he said, I know my mind was trying to ask a question, and every time I was trying to ask a question came another movie. Movie, 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 all with gold. And he said, I fainted. And they caught him. The superior officer was prepared. They'd done this before. He woke up on a bed in some place in a tent, and it was 3 hours later. And he said, with God as my witness, I know that what that being was doing was showing me where it came from, why it was here, what it was doing, the images of the earth, all of this. And he said, God could ask me, and I do not know what was communicated. And he said that was what my superior officer wanted me to experience, is that we are a species that is fundamentally so different, and yet the grays are considered to at least be helpful to the human military. And I think about what I've just told you, I think about it quite often, but I do not think it is an excuse to keep the earth completely dumb and blind.
But the insertion of a dream in it. The insertion
Well,
of a waking dream in it. Think about it.
You know, Whitney talked about that the other day. He said, those beings exist in a no-time space. And so
or can. They can go in and out of different levels of frequency that we do not understand how to do.
Is it not reasonable to think they might have access to their own subconscious?
I don't know how to answer the questions you're asking, because I only know what I have been.
Where do you put in the idea of lucid dream? That's when you're half awake, you have a dream.
That's exactly it.
I don't know. All I do know is vivid dreams can bring communication to people who have been abducted later, like 2 weeks later. A vivid dream can be like the aliens are trying to explain what happened in an abduction. And that is a kind of communication that is delayed, and it uses dreaming in humans. But beyond that, I don't I can't answer these other.
That story you just told is mine and Desiree's favorite. Sometimes we show, because you
Citizens'
told it
hearing.
at the citizens' hearings, and it's
Yeah.
just the perfect story to illustrate the scope of
That's right.
mind
That's right.
that we can
We're not there.
comprehend.
No.
But I think lucidness, the more lucid we can be, the more we can adapt maybe to those.
Well, I'll tell you, in leaving everybody on, I hope, an up note, I am convinced, I know that the aerospace engineer agrees with me on this, he's let me know. No matter who actually manipulated the DNA in already evolving primates to create Homo sapiens sapiens, we are a species that does have a soul that is considered enviable and desired. And that if we knew the truth about reincarnation, the recycling of souls as the machinery of this universe, as it has been described in a document that I was shown, I do not have, but I was shown to read, that came in a dialogue that was filmed. Our government has this film in one of the underground archives. And it was from an EBIN that was collected from a crash site, not the 47 July, another one in 49. And the being was alive, and the captain at the site was assigned to stay with the being that was taken up to Los Alamos. And the being lived from 49 until June 18, 1952, in Los Alamos. And every single day during those 2+ years, they put a 16 millimeter camera on the captain and the EBIN. And the captain would talk, because you could hear the human, you couldn't get the telepathy of the gray. So the Air Force guy would say his question, and then while the gray was answering, he would then, Charlie McCarthy style, say, this is what I'm getting telepathically. And one of the questions that was submitted was, is reincarnation real? And the answer that is supposed to be on film from the gray sitting there next to the Air Force was, reincarnation, the recycling of souls, is the machinery of this universe. And the concept that we may be a species that was made specifically for soul recycling and education, and that there are non-humans who want that. How complicated is this universe between the different species, the soul's role? And it always leads to this question, and I'll leave it here on this last question. I've asked several people that have worked in military and CIA, DIA, NSA, and I never get an answer. Why were the first 3 avatars sent here in the first place? And I mean Buddha and Krishna and Christ. What is the meaning and the communication to Homo sapiens sapien from those 3 fundamental figures in history who were identified as having something to do with a source of the divine? It almost seems to me that we're in a schizophrenic universe, and that the only way that you can begin to make any sense of it is to think of the yin and the yang symbol. And that Thomas Campbell, the physicist who worked for Army Intel and helped develop the Robert Monroe out-of-body technique, that
Krishna and
Krishna, I thought you said
Christ, Krishna, and Buddha.
Oh, Christ, Krishna.
And I don't include some, like the Muhammad, I don't know who Muhammad really represented, and that's the same problem with the ET. But it is as if there is a relationship between something else that may be far beyond any of the biological or certainly the AI in the universe. And Thomas Campbell, the Army Intel guy who worked with Robert Monroe, he said this is an entropy reduction trainer for souls universe. And I keep coming back to that as being more logical than anything I meet. And that in the end, whether you're a gray, whether you're a tall blonde, whether you're a reptile, whether you're a horrible insect, if you're a human, it may be that this universe is one gigantic university with the goal that the divine field would like every soul, even if they run across evil, to end up choosing the thought that dwells in the light. And then that would be the return back to the origin of all, the thought that dwells in the light. And that is as close as I can get to the feeling of something that is true about this strange universe. And I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.